This mountain is the place where Taoist herbalism is said to have begun. It is called Mount Changbai. It is in China with a lake in the middle. It's one of the highest lakes in the world. And the border of Korea and China go right through the middle. And so both of them share the history of the development of Taoist herbalism. What I want to tell you about this picture is that a lot of the herbs that we use in the Chinese Materia Medica evolved here. The reason is because when this mountain erupted, its most recent eruption was around 50,000 BC, which is pretty recent. There were already a lot of mountains around the area that were similar to our Appalachian mountains. Highly eroded mountain chains that had been through a couple of extinction cycles that were, worn down pretty well with complex deciduous forests. And then all of a sudden, out of that, this massive volcano goes boom! And when it did, it blew these very, very deep ores from in the earth that have what we call diamagnetic energy. They have a magnetism to them, an earth-based magnetism that is a reflection of that star's light of the sun that's buried in the earth, that the earth stored. When an area is high in diamagnetism or earth-based magnetism, what happens is it creates a levitative sort of energy. And so you know that we have gravitative energy, and our science studied gravitation, what holds us to the earth, but our science has not yet gotten to the levitative part. And one of my heroes, Victor Schauberger, used to say, well, hey, without levity, you can't have gravity. You've got to have an equal force of levity. But we haven't gotten to that part yet. But the diamagnetic energy in this area creates an energy of levity. And so what that does is that causes plants to grow up. That brings the crown of that giant Douglas fir up so far to grasp the sun's radiation. How does that do that? How does that tree go up so high? How does it pull all the water up there to feed it and everything? Does it have some little suction cup up there and they're on top going like this? No, it's diamagnetic energy from the earth and from resonating in this, bringing it up. So then very powerful plants emerged here and evolved here. Astragalus, ginseng, dongguai. These very powerful herbs that I want to tell you about today. And by the way, you see this really dark area up here. This is an area that was set aside by ancient emperors and empresses to be their private herb collecting area. And today it is still off limits to humans. So this is one of the very last completely untouched indigenous northern forest in the northern hemisphere, right here. That's what all the forests in the northern hemisphere looked like probably 1,000, 5,000 years ago. This place is called a forbidden zone. No one is allowed in there, except there are some deer herders who are allowed. You see a little spot right there? That's probably a little deer herding facility. And if I were to have time, I would get into deer and deer antler and all that, but I'm going to speak in more in vegetarian regard today. Anyway, so humans then migrated into this area about 30,000 years ago, and at some point they discovered the power of these plants for their own therapy. This is the first known herb that is listed in the oldest known pharmacopoeia of herbology. It is called Eucommia bark. Its Chinese name is duzhang. And the legend goes that people were living up around Mount Changbai, and they started to seek ways that they could gain more powerful health. I don't think they had disease so much yet. They lived in a world where they didn't have to deal with the kind of disease we have. But they were looking more in terms with how they could empower themselves to get away from a lion or keep climbing up that mountain to search for their herbs. Now the legend here goes that people living up in this area saw animals get a bone fracture, and then they would then go to a certain tree and start chewing on the tree instinctively. And then they would watch and saw that the animal's bone healed up quicker. And then somebody wrote it down. See, now this is a very important thing here. Someone wrote this down on the back of a piece of bamboo or something like that. Said, hey, animal ate that. And so then they went and tried it. And somebody got a broken bone fracture. They gave it to them. And their bone healed up quicker. And somebody wrote on the chunk of bamboo, bone healed quicker, right? And some of these things are still in the Peking, Beijing library. And so, thank God, people started writing down and documenting their observations about this as of about 5,000 years ago, or more, probably 10,000.